Welcome to Dwarven Forge Live. This is our Dungeons Reforged Sculptors Roundtable. Buckle up because we have an hour of hard-hitting, artsy questions coming up for you, as well as, I don't know, what else have we got going on, Chris? What's happening for
Oh,
this
I,
next
I,
hour?
I muted my mic because I
Oh.
wasn't going to say. Yeah, we're going to be doing at least one giveaway today. Tell you what, we recently decided we're $10,000 away from our next stretch goal. And if we hit that during the stream, we're going to do a bonus giveaway. So there's going to be two chances to win a $50 Dwarven Forge gift card in this stream, most likely. And yeah,
Well, it's up to you guys.
it's up to you.
Get
Hey,
us
if you want a chance to
another
win
10K, and we'll,
if you want a chance to win $50, give us 10,000 right now.
it's a deal.
Yeah.
Right? So we are going to be, we got a bunch of questions. We have Eli, Toby, Michelle here. They're going to introduce themselves in a sec. We're going to ask them a bunch of questions, and we want your questions too. We'd love you to hop in the chat. Let us know what you'd like to know, what secrets you want to learn from the depths of the forge here. Just be nice, right? It's the only rule. Hop in and be part of it, but be nice. And is there anything else we need to cover before we dive in? Oh, I know. Michelle, you have an important announcement.
Well, not an announcement, just I wanted to take a chance to, since we're doing this on Veterans Day, to a shout out thanking all of our veterans, including my husband,
Woo.
who retired after 22 years of the Air Force. You guys know him as customer service Chuck.
Also known as the Climb Dog.
The disembodied hand.
So I just wanted to be able to say how much we appreciate those who have served and the sacrifices they and their families had to make.
Indeed. And how many miles of cable did he wrangle in his years?
I can't even imagine how many miles worth of cabling were in each one of those jets.
Right, it was like multiple miles in each jet, right?
Something like 5 miles per jet.
That's bonkers. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you all, veterans.
Thank you.
It's hard work.
Thank you.
All right, so let's dive in. So, Michelle, since you're talking, why don't you tell anybody that doesn't know, anybody that's new here, who you are, what's some of your specialties here? Why are you magical? I mean, there's many reasons, but maybe like the 20-second version.
Well, my name is Michelle McCripp, and I have been sculpting with Dwarven Forge for 9 years, and cannot believe how long it's been. My specialties are some of the fine detailed pieces with intricate knot work and the kind of stuff that requires magnifying lenses and sewing needles to sculpt with.
Like, just let that process for a second. Sewing needles, the tip of a sewing needle. Boggers. Toby, what's your name and what sort of things you're great at?
As you guys heard, my name is Toby, and I've been working here since pretty much, first Dungeon of Doom. So,
Castles,
and coming
you're
a full
in,
circle around. Well, yeah, technically started late end of Castles, but yeah. So yeah, I do sculpting here, and I do some like helping come up with like piece systems and stuff like that. And lately, I've been expanding on to trying 3D design as well and mixing it up. So it's been a back and forth for that, and it's been really fun. Yeah.
And what's you have a unique background that's been instrumental in some of your work. What did you study that ended up actually panning out here?
Yeah, I didn't think it would how useful it would be, but I went to school for architecture. So well, this is just like architecture for planning your players in a game and stuff like that. So yeah, between cities and like castles and even dungeons.
Yeah, even
A lot of
dungeons
that
have
around, yeah.
architecture. So Eli, who are you and why was your English degree a good idea?
Well, I can speak English, so I guess that works. Yeah. I'm Eli Alexander. I'm the lead sculptor. I've been working at Dwarven Forge since the original city building system, back when things were much more chaotic and crammed into a little teeny studio. And my background, I do have a degree in English. I also spent many years working as a professional carpenter, sort of an amateur naturalist. I grew up in the North Woods of Vermont, where I still live. My wife is a trained botanist and a floral designer, so I have a kind of a deep background in natural things and in building things, both of which have been very helpful. I would say that sort of natural forms and organic shapes are particular favorites of mine, and one of my specialties. I love doing textures, creating new textures, whether it be the surface of lava or a tree's bark or whatever the case might be. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell, I guess.
Didn't you collect bugs as a kid too?
Yeah, I collected insects. I had a huge insect collection. I wanted to be an entomologist when I was around 14. Um, and yeah,
Now you get to make fantasy insects instead.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, I've been playing D&D since first edition. I made up my own role-playing game when I was like 7.5. And so this is when I was a kid, I coveted miniatures, and not that there really was miniature terrain much back then, but like a couple of my friends had a few of the little old metal Ralparth things, and I always wanted those. But and I actually remember making a few clay miniatures when I was about 10 or so, and casting them in my mother's kiln. My parents were met at art school, and my mother had a kiln, so those are still somewhere in my parents' attic. So
One day you got to dig those up.
yeah, if I ever find them, they're going somewhere special. But yeah.
Totally. All right, so we currently have this campaign going for Dungeons Reforged. Where are we at, Chris? How close to 1.3 mil are we?
We're 1,290.
Woo!
So
really close.
yeah, just under 10K.
So this thing is cooking along, and it's been really fun because it's it's kind of a greatest hits, right? We got to go back. When was Dungeon of Doom? 8 years ago or something? We got to go back in and gather up the best of from Dungeon of Doom, and then the original game tiles, which was 4 years or 5 years before that, and pull everything out, dust it all off, see what needed some tweaking, see what new pieces we needed to add, put everything together in a blender, and do some new pieces, right? What were we missing in the dungeons? So my first question to you guys are, it's been a long time since we were working on dungeons, right? 8 years or whatever it is. Who knows what numbers are anymore. What was it like going back into the dungeons? Did your approach change at all in that time? Any different techniques, any different way you were thinking about it? Like, what was it like going back into the dungeons after so much time? Who wants to kick it off?
I will, I suppose.
Kick it.
It was, yeah. It certainly was a change back then. I think I mentioned this in one of my dev stories, but just the company was very different. There was a lot less of us. We were in one basement studio area that would occasionally flood, that had rats. I remember there was one time I was down there, and there was literally like 4 inches of brown dubious water that was creeping across the floor.
That wasn't water.
Yeah, whatever it was. I tried to get in the studio. I remember piling blocks going down to the hallway so I didn't have to step in it. It's just like peeking in to see how bad the flood was. Yeah, our whole process was pretty different. Then we used to do sculpting sprints where we'd kind of like have a rough idea what we're going to do. And I would come down from Vermont and stay in Brooklyn for a few weeks and work like 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we would all just kind of madly create everything. Now our process is much more carefully considered. There's a big development process months and months before we start creating anything, rather than just like make a bunch of stuff and then start filling in the holes.
There's now a process.
Yeah, there is a process.
It actually is a process.
Yeah. Dungeons of Doom was kind of Dungeons of Chaos. Not that it wasn't a wonderful set, but it was just and I think it did probably benefit from the fact that dungeons are maybe a little easier to concept out, basically, than say doing a science fiction set or a castle or something where it gets more complicated. But still, we're just way more careful now. We want to make sure that everything is backwards compatible, is planning for future things. works with other sets, works with in all kinds of new and creative ways. We want to get the most out of every single piece, and so our dev process is just way different, and that's maybe the biggest thing. It was just, I mean, it's certainly very nostalgic going back into the dungeons too.
Yeah.
It's just fun, like, that's kind of where it all started for all of us to some degree, in the dungeon. Yeah, I'll
Oh,
cede
sure.
the floor to the others.
Michelle, do you have anything that's sort of changed or developed since, like, any way you're looking at it differently or approaching it differently or thinking about it differently?
Well, when I started, I was doing just small little decorative pieces for the most part. I wasn't doing much of the structural elements of our different Kickstarters. So, after cities, I got in on the tail end of that one, and then we went into castles, and where I was able to explore more decorative elements, which is exciting to know that, the Necromancer's Keep our Necromancer's Throne got put into a set other than with the Necromancer's Keep or the whole Necromancer set.
The skeleton hangers, those were also yours from castles, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So getting to see those being revived and into dungeons is really cool. I love that people are calling it the Bone Room and seeing the ossuaries. But for this one, this was the first time I got a chance to really make a major structural piece. So that was something that was really fun and exciting for me, because most of the time that falls on Eli and Toby to do.
When you pitched this, you pitched that Demon's Maw too. You're like, wait, what if we do? You made your own destiny.
I pitched it, but it was originally Chuck's idea. He he'd heard customers talking about how it was hard to get the demon door from KS1, and it's sort of an iconic D&D
Yes.
element, that the giant maw, and being able to get that big demon and make it into a piece that also can use our double doors, and the other thing that Chuck really wanted was an entranceway, a little more grand double door entrance for where you go into this serious battle or first time stepping into the dungeon.
A meaningful,
so-
like, passing this threshold is like, this is you make a decision. If you're going through this, there's no going back.
So I was excited to be able to get those ideas that Chuck's been trying to push me towards forever.
And concurrently, Toby had been pitching, like, hey, this dread pedestal, like, part of the cool design with the dread pedestal that Toby initially put together was like, hey, this can hold the light puck vertically. Like, this opens up some fun ways to do vertical light puck pieces. So it all converged into a neat thing.
Yeah.
What about you, Toby? Is there anything that's different about how you approached the dungeon this time?
Yeah, it's jumping off of what Eli and Michelle both said. Yeah, like how I was talking more about how the company and how we do things change, like organize and change and stuff like that, but also how, like, what's the right word? How, like, the precision of stuff and like how we like sculptors has changed a lot since then as well. So one of the things I don't know if you could have done back in Dungeon Doom was the new the hidden door wall that I did, where it's like there's a lot of going back and forth on, like,
Yeah. Keep going.
3D to get precise measurements, and like with use of 3D printers, and also like how our factory is more open to using 3D models. Well, they have to now. They have to set everything 3D models, but between that and stuff like that, like we can be a lot more precise and try much more like interesting things, I feel.
We could do more complex by using
Yeah.
some digital tools. Let us do some more complex geometry that is much harder to sort of, and precision in complex geometry is harder to execute with
Yeah.
analog. Do you have the capability of going to the close-up cam, Chris? Just show the.
I can go into it like this, or I can go full screen
Yeah,
on it.
that works.
Okay.
I think. I don't know if I've got enough light on there.
Yeah, of course, everything was strictly analog back in Dungeon of Doom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Painfully analog is how I often describe it. Right, look at that engineering. I think it's awesome. This would have been very hard to execute back in the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to like
Yeah.
something that's very different with how we used to do pieces versus how we used to design and like, you know.
Similar, kind of on a similar vein. Then what was, and this is somebody in the chat was also asking this, is what do you think the most challenging piece or technique or aspect of this the sculpting for this campaign was? But you have something that pops to mind as one of the hardest things you had to tackle?
You mean for the entirety of the dungeon or just for the new stuff?
Just for the new stuff. I think we're in the future now, or the present, or the near past, I guess.
Well, I
for
know.
me,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michelle.
Go, Michelle.
for me was getting the demon's head so that you could put in regular double doors and open them fully without them running into hitting the teeth.
Yep.
And then the trick to get light through with the piece that Toby designed to hold the light puck up that Eli sculpted. We could get things lined up and have that cool effect in the demon's eyes.
Especially because you were doing it all analog.
Yes,
Right,
I
so
did. I do. I'm still, unfortunately, not, haven't got any experience with digital sculpting yet.
Well, it's because
So good.
you have some crazy analog specialties. Yeah, you got it to line up like an absolute champ. It's so cool. How did you figure out? Did Toby give you a template of the LEDs?
Yeah,
Or then you trace
I
it?
used the template that he had originally made so that I could line things up. I also had my own puck sitting next to me in the studio, so I could turn it on and double check and work with it that way.
Always. What about Eli or Toby? What do you was there something that you found particularly challenging, a growth experience in here?
Well, I mean, I think this was more Toby's problem than mine, but dealing with the very precise tolerances on fitting the light puck into a 4-inch space and still making the shape interesting. And Toby really did most of the heavy lifting on that. He did sort of exploring the shape with digital mocks so we could get something that would hold the fogger and the light puck, and the geometry would work there. And then I just got to skin it over. There were some limitations on what I could do with because it was so thin, but
Well, by
honestly,
the time you hollow all this out, like there's not a lot of material left in a lot of places in here. Like once you take the lid off and take this empty, it is really a thin skeleton. But guess what? It works like a charm. I need to grab a fogger so we can pop that in there and see how that works too. What about you, Toby? What was there anything that you found particularly challenging in this project?
Yeah, I would say as I was just talking about the hidden door, but yeah, it's between that, like figuring out like the preciseness of that, and also like going back and forth and like putting multiple times just to make sure that everything's like precise, and then like having to redo the textures of that as well. But also for the acid furnace, like I to there's a lot of learning there because I was initially intended that piece to be both like a hybrid of digital and physical sculpting, but we realized that if we did that, like printing it out and then scanning again, it'll lose too much detail. So I had to do that whole thing digital. So like figuring out how to like sculpt boiling water was definitely an interesting
Yeah.
challenge.
Well, and that was you wrote about that in
Yeah.
our developing dungeon story from that one was on Sunday's update. You talk about the development of the furnace and particularly those bubbles. Eli, didn't you have some interesting advice? Like you really love doing
Yeah, I love
fluid dynamics,
any
right?
texture. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
Kenobi and I kind of went back and forth to discussing, ideas for how to tinker with that to just get the feel of some maybe slightly viscous liquid that's bubbling. Yeah, there was a lot of discussion there. I love getting into the weeds on any texture.
And it's always fun to hear what you have to say about like the texture of both like this stuff, or like I'm talking about like wood and like other things in like cities, like just hearing about how they naturally occur and stuff like that is always like really interesting to see how to translate that into sculpting on this scale and stuff. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I realized that I just internalized from so many years of carpentry. Not that I did carpentry with boiling water so much, but just like the way of looking at things. Like I've been doing a lot of this. This is maybe an advanced mini teeny bean for what we're doing for Cities Reforged. But
buckle
Lisa
up, bean incoming.
Sell, one of our freelancers, is working on a piece, and I've been just going over a lot of stuff with her about certain kinds of a slightly different wood texture that people will be seeing there. And just thinking about, as she'll do a thing and I'll think about why I want to make a suggestion, and it all gets back and, okay, well, how would a medieval carpenter have made this thing? And so what does that result in, and just, I think that's so important for really conveying a sense of the realness of a thing. Like,
Yes.
like, even if sometimes like I don't know why I'm doing it unless I stop and think about it, and talk to someone about why is this a way. But you realize that if you know how a thing is actually made, it goes into a sculpt of the thing, and it comes out. You can see that there's a reality to it that would be lacking otherwise, I guess. So yeah, I think that the deeper we go into understanding what we're making, the better. And that's just it goes back. I mean, I think it's important for any artist to be kind of a keen observer of whatever it is you're working on. But
the best
but it's
pieces,
all fun.
they have a
it's fun
story,
to
right? Like
discover things. Yeah.
the Lampy the lamppost, Michelle, that you did in Lowtown, right? There was a whole story of how this thing came to be in the sculpt, right? You had to think about if this was actually what were the elements that get there, and that I think that's one of the reasons that piece has so much charm is that you spend a lot of time thinking about how did this come to be, how it's created. Similar to figuring out a stone texture, or how was this, the stone created, or how was this thing, whatever. It definitely, once again, one of those things that maybe people, you won't necessarily know it when you get the piece, but you feel, right? There's something about it that is in there.
Definitely, I
Nate,
think
not
all-
to sorry.
Go.
Go ahead, Eli.
Yeah.
Oh, I was
Michelle.
just gonna say, this is kind of bouncing back a bit, but I guess something we kind of touched on, but you'd asked about just like how things changed. Like certainly just the hybrid of digital and analog now, and how we're very willing to find what works best and combine them. So for example, the trickiness of doing the dread pedestal and getting the shape, Toby was able to figure that out digitally, and then 3D print the armature, which I could then work on. And we could have made that analog, but it's so much easier to get, that precise circle and those very thin walls and shrink it down by just that amount, And so,
And
yeah,
then
they're
it
definitely,
worked.
yeah.
Right, we actually had a working prototype now too. We didn't have to
Yeah.
we really know sort of. Sometimes we will have a prototype that we think is going to work, but we're not entirely sure, and we kind of wing it and hope it pans out and requires a lot of tinkering. These are like, okay, this actually 100% works. It's all fine. Like we're going into production much more confidently because you did so much early development, Toby, that we're like, okay, this is actually 100% ready to go and doable. No surprises. What were you going to say, Michelle?
I have already forgotten.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Just that I think everybody, all of us, are constantly looking at, okay, why are we going to do this piece? Why
Yes.
are we going to design it the way we're designing it? And it's not just oh, this looks cool. It has to look cool, but it's also got to work.
Yes.
And I think that's a big change from in the beginning. We were focused a lot more on how cool something looked and didn't think about as much of how it was going to be used, how it would work. So
The
we
use
just
case is
are
crucial.
doing it more now.
Right. If it's not going to get, if it's really hard to use or something you're never going to use, like it's not going to get out on the table. Like we want the pieces to get out on the table and get on the table a lot, right? Have a lot of use. And that's one of the things the feedback we get a lot is people are really into the versatility and the modularity, right? Being able to use the thing in a bunch of different ways so they can use it a lot. And actually leads to my next question. Is there, we get a lot of really good feedback from you guys, right? Both through through the surveys that we send out, Discord, comments during the campaigns, the forums. Is there any feedback that you guys are, you, Eli, Toby, Michelle, are thinking about as you're going into pieces? Is there stuff that really kind of resonates, that dings around your brain a bunch as you're designing stuff, or as you specifically designing some of these pieces? Is there stuff, fan feedback, that's helped sort of drive your design and style?
I mean, I guess just knowing what people like, that they appreciate the small details, that they appreciate a sense of verisimilitude, that they appreciate versatility, and I mean, one thing that I'm often struck by and appreciate is well, you and Toby and anyone else around the studio playing with stuff and thinking like a backer and coming up with creative ways to do things. And so that's one thing, like as Michelle was saying, we think about how things work and how they might work in alternate cases as well as the main, because if we can make something awesome for its official use, but also if you flip it upside down, it does this, then without taking anything away from its main use case, that's really great. And we know that people will be excited to discover that, and then they'll find a third way you can turn it sideways and do something else that we never even anticipated. But trying to anticipate stuff, trying to anticipate the creativity and facilitate it by, adjusting the size of something a little bit or adding a peg hole somewhere, or, putting it up against something else and making sure the two things line up so it looks good when you put them together, that kind of thing.
I know, Michelle, you were thinking when it's going into this Demon's Maw, that was something that was really on your mind of like, okay, this is going to be kind of a big, expensive, specific piece. How do I make this versatile in a couple of ways? I'm going to get an arch. Do you want to talk about that?
Sorry, I need to get my fuzzy off my table.
Hey, cat.
That was the doc.
Hi, Doc.
I've already forgotten the question you asked. Being able to come up with a way in which I can get as many uses and pieces out of a single so we can slip them the little extras in, where we have Tyler and Jay and trying to keep our piece counts down at different SKUs and stuff. So it's a balancing act to be able to get stuff we really want to make and keep it within the scope of the project we're currently working on. And it's a huge challenge because of course we want to just keep making
Everything.
making more and more and more and more stuff. So being able to get a piece that could be used with all of the existing stuff that we have, like the doors and the archways, and but have it look different. The more grand entrance, something that's going to stand out a little bit more. That's the most fun thing about what we get to do here.
Well, being able to have having this Demon's Maw, so you have this really cool throwback old schooly face, which is a pretty specific and awesome thing. But then, so not only being able to use that as a door and as a light puck piece, whatever, but then be able to pull it out and have the base be then a regular double door using the double door topper, or I should have grabbed the city builder piece right there. You can slot in a city builder wall there, right? So I put in the update on Friday, we have there's shots of the lion arch from City Builder in here in front of a temple, and it looks really cool. So there's a bunch of building possibilities with this piece. So it's not just one big expensive does one thing showpiece. This is cool. This alone could sell, right? And then you get the cool upper, and it's okay, this thing is ridiculous. It's pretty exciting. Toby,
Yeah.
sorry, go.
I just said yes. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that was all part. It was premeditated, right? That was all part of your thought process. How do I justify making this big expensive thing? And it's it better be able to do a couple of, it better have a bunch of ways to get on the table so that people are okay, it's worth getting this thing. Also, on a side note, we made a pricing error when we put this thing out, so it's underpriced by about $20. We're not going to change it, so we will keep it while the campaign is live. We will honor the price that we originally put it out at. So if you're thinking about getting the Demon's Maw, I highly recommend doing it now before the campaign closes, because once the campaign closes, we're going to put the price back up to what it should be. So if you want it, get in on it now, because the price will be up in the Pledge Manager.
They're wondering if they can see the demon door in there with the maw on it as well,
Yeah.
real quick.
Yes. And also, keen observers may note that I just dropped this piece before the stream, and the prototype took two little hits. But yeah, and it doesn't come with these demon doors. It comes with the
Dwarven doors.
Yeah, the cool dwarven doors.
The one that has we also got to break. That I had tons of fun breaking those doors.
That's a really fun. Wait, does it come with both
Well,
combos?
what I ended up doing was taking the original. I just poured resin, made a resin cast of the original doors, and then heated it up and used scissors and pliers and it kind of broke it open to get the damaged door. And
that was how I did my
loved
broken Giants door the same way. I pulled it out of the mold before it was fully set and just started going on it where I could bend it. Yeah.
Well, that's what the inspiration for those broken doors was that cool gag that you'd done after Kickstarter 1. You did your Griffin Tamer Kickstarter, and you had these cool double doors, and one was that huge Giants double door that was broken, whatever. And so that was, we're oh, well, how do we get that into a Dwarven Forge style double doors that'll work? And it was a really cool driver. Toby, is there anything any sort of feedback from the backers that kicks around in your brain as you're approaching the pieces for this thing, or pieces in general?
Yeah, it's similar to what Eli was saying about how people use a piece in interesting ways. I was thinking about how the fan builds you see on there, and like seeing pieces like seeing interesting ways. So it's like I'm always thinking about like how a piece could possibly be used in like a niche or like way, or like both thematically or both or like geometrically or functionally. So I'm always thinking of that. But
Well, that is the
also,
thing that as a group
yeah,
we'll say like, oh, people are going to be psyched about this. This is going to get on their thing. Right?
yeah,
Like that definitely comes up. Right? If we get excited, it means probably okay. Other people are getting
yeah.
excited.
Sometimes I put in things that no one ever like ends up using. Oh well, but it's still fun to like try to like you know provide options.
Someone will
Yeah,
use it.
yeah. And another thing I was thinking about is this thing like back in like Cities Untold, when we're like early on when we're showing like the roofs and stuff like that, and someone did like all those variations like of their own like versions of the roofs and stuff like that, seeing like what like people's enthusiasm and ideas over it, like
That was Mad
it's really
Roboticist, right? It did
yeah,
like sort of
thanks.
saw what we were doing on the anvil. It was like, well, oh, based on this geometry, if there were these 16 other pieces, you could do
Yeah,
everything in the world. It
yeah.
was amazing.
And it's always fun to think about like, well, we can't do that with the piece count, but let's try to add as much like in functionality
Yes.
within that to try to like to give as much options as possible.
We are at we're at 440. We should do a giveaway word.
We're also less than 1,000 away from the
Holy
stretch
moly!
goal.
Can we
So
double the
yeah,
giveaway? Well,
yeah.
let's.
So
Who
let's.
wants to give a word? Anybody have a word out there? A family-friendly word. Looking at Michelle. Hot tub, is that your word?
Yeah.
Everybody's saying maw.
Maw, M-A-W.
Yeah, everybody's saying maw.
Maw it up.
All right. So if you want a chance to win a $50 Dwarven Forge gift card, type maw in the chat.
Woo!
MAW, and we will roll that in a couple minutes.
And then if we break 2.3 million while the stream is still live, we'll do another one. So we'll see what happens. So one of the things we I think Aaron dubbed or that are thoughtful touches, right? Trying to put these lots of little tiny details in pieces, from hidden critters in the wildlands bits to the warded trapdoor from Dungeon of Doom. Like Michelle, you put claw marks on the inside of that trapdoor to tell a story. Like these little tiny details that people might not notice, but people painting the pieces will generally often notice, right? Because it's this little thing to discover. Are there any specific fun little thoughtful touches in the pieces that you guys did for this campaign that you want to call out, like alert people to so they can be on the lookout for them?
I could say the backside of the maw.
If you mean disturbing touch, yeah. That is let's get in close on this because it is.
It is a little disturbing. It's actually based off of a real photograph of a lava flow,
Oh, yeah, let me get in.
and Hamster gave it his old disgusting touch
Yeah, you did.
to make it
Right.
that much more disturbing.
So there's kind of some forms, humanoid forms in there, sort of. It's sort of fleshy. It's sort of like, ooh, I don't know what it is. It's definitely thoughtful or thought-provoking.
Yeah, as the original design, the original picture, you saw that where just the way the lava formed, cooled, it just really looked like the gates of hell.
It looked like a pit
Uh,
of people like
it-
getting sucked in. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
You have a
And
knack
so
for finding very very evocative concept images on the internet, right? You post these things up that are like, oh, wow. And then you'll take this thing, you're like, if I take this sort of like this detail from this thing, that thing from there, the angle from this thing, and I can put those in a blender and turn to this thing, and it turns to this magical bit.
We've just hit 1.3.
Holy moly! All right, so as soon as we finish this one, we gotta do another. Do we do another, or do we do do we just double draw on this one?
Really,
Double draw them all.
We could really do it either way. Yeah.
Yeah, double draw them all. Then people
Double
don't
draw
have
them
to
all?
pollute
Okay.
pollute the chat with 1,000 maws. Toby or Eli, are there any specific little details you want to call out?
Okay, sure. I guess I guess for me, it's for the, the acid furnace and like just like the weathering I did on there. But on the back, it's hard to see, but like where the stairs or the ladder is, like I was like texturing that, like it almost started accidentally, but how texturing kind of ended up looking like the uh metal was like weathering down over time with the footsteps and stuff like that.
So the center rungs of the ladder are a little worn
Yeah,
away
yeah, like
from evil goblins stirring their soup. Whatever.
that, and also how like the mechanisms tie into the artificer. What's it called?
The reliquary.
Reliquaries.
Like some of these
because that's some of-
designs, right? You were
Yeah.
drawn from stuff on the reliquaries pieces.
Yeah, and even some of the gears and stuff like that are like very like same ones used in the spider one in the back.
So
Yeah,
fun.
so it's like it ties into that, I guess.
What about you, Eli? Is there anything?
Yeah, probably my favorite thing. I mean, there's a spider lurking on the dread pedestal somewhere, which people come across. But probably my favorite thing. I actually spent quite a bit of time on the runes that are on the bladed
Yes.
ziggurat, and they're sort of inspired by arthropod shapes, insects and scorpions, and so on. And they may be a little hard to make out, on camera, but hopefully when you get in person, you'll get to see. I love runes. I've come up with many different runic systems. And this was a new one
Didn't you do
that I did.
infernal runes for
Yes.
Hellscape? And you did
Yes,
these
and
things
they even
yeah.
say things,
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a variety of different things written in Hellscape, but these I figured each one was kind of more of an old school rune where just a single rune, carries power of some sort and can convey something. So depending on how you perhaps activate them by your chant as you stand on the edge of the pit, you can set the blades whirling or summon demons forth or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I was quite pleased with those. They were a lot of fun.
Do you want to tell us one of these runes what dark forbidden secret it unlocks?
Well, there's definitely one that's kind of scorpion-like that I have a homebrew creature that's sort of a demonic scorpion that I use in my 5e game. I'm not sure if that's, I don't know if I can see it well enough to find.
And I can't look at it while it's on the camera.
Right. You just have to take my word for it.
Well,
it's in
people
there.
have to be on the
one
lookout
that looks
for
most like a scorpion. Yeah.
Scorpion-like.
And yeah, so that's kind of I'm associating that in my mind with this particular creature, that it's not only venomous, but the venom kind of infects you with a demonic disease that kind of like a hyper leprosy, if you will. So probably it's venom or something akin to that is imbued into the edges of the blades by that rune. So there's one detail for you.
Love it. Love it. Is there anything you are looking for with these pieces when you guys get these pieces in hand? So is there anything you're looking forward to building? Or is there anything you're looking forward to seeing people build when they get this stuff, right? Like one of the fun payoffs for us is seeing these photos that go up on Discord, up on social media out there. Like you see stuff floating around, or maybe just like at Gen Con, seeing Patrick do a mazes build with this just clever stuff every time. It's such a cool payoff. Is there anything you're hoping to see when these pieces get out in the wild in a year?
Definitely like the ultimate evil artificers dungeon.
Yeah, I just want to say that as well.
Yeah.
Like the pipes as well from.
Yeah, definitely some Starforge stuff.
Yeah.
The pipes from Starforge play with these things so well. I've dipped ever so lightly, and there's the in the Sinister Showcase video that went up on Saturday, you can see there's a little bit of Starforged with the these, and then in the Builder's Masterclass multi-level dungeon, the second build there's a little bit of those pipes that are going in, as well as the Artificer Reliquaries are sneaking their way in too, because they work all so well with it. Like, I can't wait to see
some
how much
Michelle
further.
stuff from Plague Stone.
Yeah, the Hellfire Furnace is in there, tucked up against the dynamo turbine for that. It's just like, yeah, it's super fun. What else? What else are you guys hoping to see people create?
I'm excited about the Sinister paint scheme.
It's
How it just brought
Yeah.
new life into the pieces. And I think it'll be really fun to get to see people integrating the Sinister stuff in with their existing dungeon stuff.
even little things like this. Chris, you want to pop the close-up camera? Like, this is the pillar. So the new treasure chest we have is this pillar done in Sinister, and same sculpt, feels very different in Sinister, particularly because now the top is like gold, so it pops more, or bronze. Because like it's so neat. Even look at this, just like difference between these. Right, the bladed ziggurat, just the feel of difference between the same sculpt, two different colors. I'm very excited for Sinister. It's gonna.
In
gonna
that
pop.
note, one idea I really like is having two demons maws and the two different paint schemes back to back. So, demon faces opposite each other. And as you step through, it's essentially a portal. And, the other side is like the upside down or the
Yep.
Shadowfell or whatever. Just that transition. Suddenly you're in a different color scheme. You're in a different world. And there it is, just through that doorway.
A mirror build. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god,
we're-
that sounds awesome.
And one door tells the truth and one lies.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Oh, that's a really fun idea. Right on. You could mirror. Oh man,
Yeah, I've been hearing everybody talk about that in the chats and all that.
that's killer.
Yeah.
So one last question before we turn over some questions from the chat. If we go back underground, right? At some point we're going to go back to dungeons and right, do something else there. Is there anything? If there's one thing that you could sculpt for dungeons when we revisit, what would it be? And why is it a
We
hot
have to limit it to one.
Yeah.
Because we're running out of time. That's why. Anybody?
I mean, I'd like to do an environment for particular underground creatures. I mean, it's kind of a hybrid dungeon cavern thing, maybe, but like specifically probably dungeons built by, maybe Durgar or Drow or something like that. I think that
Themes
would be
like
pretty.
yeah.
Yeah,
They spent some
yeah.
time
There's
and
a
some
little
art.
more intricate stonework and
Yeah.
some statuary or figurative bits, or even some denizens, of course.
Like the Forsaken Temple has very specific flavor. Like doing something with specific flavor. Yeah. Hey, Michelle or Toby, do you have something you're dying to?
Well, if we're just saying underground, I want catacombs.
I mean, for like 10 years, you've been saying catacombs, 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 catacombs.
Yeah.
It's too bad nobody else wants catacombs out in the wild. Real bummer, I guess. Maybe we should consider it one
Being
day.
able to, even just to do some teaser pieces with
Yeah.
our transition type pieces would be awesome.
Agree.
So that we could just add that little bit more and then do a full-on catacombs with a mausoleum and
Yeah, you pulled
some of
some cool concept. We will certainly do it at some point. It is on the radar. When that point is, but it's on the radar. What Toby, what about you? Is there something you're dying to do if we go back down to the dungeons?
I think we lost Toby.
Looks like he froze up and turned purple there. Yeah.
He's not breathing. Ah! While we wait for Toby to get resuscitated, let's take some.
Well,
Anyway,
well, that messes with. Yeah, let's take some. All right.
let's take some questions from the chat because Chris has
Yeah.
nothing else to do.
Yeah,
right
let me try to adjust this as quickly as possible.
Um,
Let's God, how do we do this? All right. Yeah, questions from chat. I'll just go ahead and ask that. What's something that's interesting? Should we keep it to Dungeons Reforged stuff, or should we
yeah, let's
get into
focus
it?
on Dungeon Reforged. We can
Okay.
roll over exciting ones till tomorrow. We have 2 hours. to go.
People are curious. Do you miss a piece in this campaign that you created but didn't make the cut? Is there anything that was proposed for this?
I don't think
People are looking for a cattail, I think.
Yeah. I don't. Did we cut anything?
We kept it pretty small this
Yeah.
time. Yeah, we were disciplined.
Yeah, I think we actually. It probably helped that we weren't designing an entire thing here this time. That probably helped a good amount. As opposed to, when you guys went and did dungeons the first time, it was a huge expansive thing that you could pour a bunch of sculpts into.
The Cree Queen. That's the thing. Way back
Okay.
then.
I fixed the overlay. I'm going to be paying attention now. Also, congrats to 301 Travis and Frosty and Winters for winning the giveaways.
Woo! Congrats.
Let's see.
What other questions do we have?
For dungeon specific, this is interesting. How can you plan forward compatibility to something that's not even planned? It appears like you're able to do that. I think there was a number. I mean, when you look at a lot of the new pieces that you guys made for this campaign, it involves a lot of compatibility with past pieces. Is there?
We have a really good scrying mirror.
Yeah.
I
And
guess.
as long
I
as
guess.
you know the incantations. I mean,
I guess specifically, is there stuff that you were able to set up where you're like, we'll probably do something with this someday, like without having an idea, but you were able to figure out some plan for it?
Sorry about that.
Hey, back.
Yeah,
Toby
the light
exists.
just flickered and then the internet went down.
We'll
Had that
get you when
happen
you're
before.
sick. One of the things we do is compatible geometry, right? We say, okay, if this thing is, we'll set a standard of like elevation block height. So because we've sculpted already a bunch of things at that height, then when you make something like a dread pedestal and you make it elevation block height, it's now suddenly compatible with all that stuff that came before. What else do we do to sort of future proof? And we don't always, let's be straight. Like there are definitely some things that we wish we'd future proof, but we definitely managed to pull it off sometimes. What are some of the other techniques we use to kind of future proof things?
well, I mean, just designing. I mean, we sort of had a shotgun approach when we were initially doing our brainstorming. We think about a lot of things that don't make the cut, but they're waiting in the wings, but the fact that we've thought about them and sometimes explored them pretty extensively means that we're like, well, maybe we're going to do a Blowtown down the line or whatever, Hightown. And so
if we're going to do it, we want to do this and this and this. So let's think about we're making this, set ourselves up for that.
Yeah, if we know we're going to have a goblin market, then we don't do, knolls instead for the
right.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that kind of thing. So yeah, thinking ahead, we do as much of that as we can.
Any other techniques you guys think of that we do to find future proof? Toby, the question was like, how do you set up? Seems like a bunch of these new pieces were almost designed in the past to work with the old stuff.
Yeah, so there's always a bunch of that. Like, I don't know why you guys both said since I just jumped back in here. So forgive me if I overlap with what you guys already said, but yeah, a bunch of this is always like, trying to match, what's we've already did and try to like make that work with our like newer, sizing or newer stuff, but also like we trying to make more things more like universal going forward.
Yes.
Like having systems like the biscuits or whole bunch like biscuits.
Pole
The
accessory
pivots.
holes,
Yeah.
double doors, right? By having a double door system, then these maws
Yeah.
can work with the double door system because it already exists, right? So you say, okay, we already know what that template is like, what the size is. So then this thing will then work with every double door that we've done as designed. It's got pole accessory holes, so it works then with every pole accessory we made.
Yeah, and also like not just for like functionality, but also like the sculpt language. Like for example, types of stones we use and types of you know the angles and geometries. Like if we expand on that, just even if like if it's in a different uh environment altogether, it still feels like it connects and it still feels like there's some lore going crossing over. So like we can expand on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
like a good example of that might be like our stone, which is kind of based on a limestone or sandstone, very much a sedimentary stone, which tends to break in horizontal strata, which makes the most sense if you're trying to fit a grid into something and you want something that's got good places for minis to stand and and tends to crack in somewhat predictable ways. It just looks better than if we tried to do granite and still have a grid in good places for minis to stand. It wouldn't look right. With limestone, you can make it look very natural. And so it makes sense to then carry that kind of stone throughout different environments. So in the wildlands, you don't see a ton of stone in the forest, but what you do see is that same kind of stone. So it's the same underlying bedrock in the area. So if you go from the mountains into the forest, it's the same stone underneath the trees, and it feels like it all belongs. And
And it does belong. And then when you build with the other stuff, and then when you go into the caverns, it makes sense that you're in those limestone caverns. And
yeah, where you get flow stone that you wouldn't in other kinds of caverns. Yeah.
what other questions? Was there anything else you wanted to add to that, Michelle? Or we take another question?
I think it's already, most of it's been said, that we're just trying to make sure that innovations are things that are worth doing. And how can we do new innovations that still could work with the previous
Yes.
sets so that you can still use them together, but we're not going to continue to do something wrong that turned out to be maybe a wrong decision. In the future, we want to continue to innovate what we're doing and make our pieces more enjoyable, have more uses so that more people can enjoy them.
And also, we're also thinking about how do we support the systems, right? That's the thing that Toby's always saying. Like, that was one of the drivers with the Dread pedestal was, right, as Eli, you're saying before before this stream, like, hey, that was a big driver. It's like, we need to get, it's been such a long time since I think you wrote about that in the, right, the developing dungeon story. Like, it had been so long since we'd done Dungeon of Doom that we now had a light puck and a fogger. We need a vehicle for that to get that in here. So by designing a thing that takes those old things, it feels like it's future compatible, but it was really, we're just making it to support the systems we already have. Let's take another. What time we got? We do one more and wrap this thing up shortly, I think.
I don't really have anything else that is dungeon specific, but there are some kind of fun questions in there, I think.
Ooh, okay. Let's take a couple. I want to do a lightning round of fun questions. You guys buckled up?
Sure.
Got your lightning rods on?
Who sculpted the shrooms? And I think we'll talk about both the original mushrooms. Like mushrooms and then also the vile mushrooms from Caverns Deep. Do we know who sculpted the original mushrooms? Was it one of you?
No, it was.
That was like
It was this guy in San Francisco's girlfriend, I think, that had done work on the catacombs. Vile mushrooms. Drew did the mother of all mushrooms. Who did the little clusters? Was that Drew also?
No, that was me.
That was you?
I did all of those. And after Drew, I got the mother of all mushrooms after Drew worked on it, or had mostly sculpted it and added
Yes.
just some touches to make it more gross.
Yes. It wasn't. It was too nice. You had to gross it up to match all the rest of the little guys. And yes. 100%.
What setting, biome, or location that we haven't done yet is at the top of your wish list to sculpt?
Ooh.
I was expecting some stronger opinions.
I was just waiting for yours, but I guess this also answers the question before. Like I didn't get to answer that one, but underground thing. It's like I always like thought like Undercity and stuff like that. Like if that's like sprawling labyrinth like Undercity might be really fun with like overgrowth and stuff like that. Just
The classic Toby Z-axis dungeon.
yes,
Yeah.
that I want it now.
Yeah.
I'd love to do some really sort of fantastical wildland stuff with like kind of integrating maybe ancient ruins and some more kind of strange and unique fantastical plants and just kind of really kind of high fantasy weird landscape stuff.
You do love your fantasy plants.
I do.
All right, should we take one more and call it?
Any chance we'll see the Griffin Tamer pieces released someday?
In
Oof.
Dwarven Forge? Probably not.
Or just in any
although-
capacity, I guess.
In any,
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
in your copious spare time.
in my when I retire.
Yeah.
I mean, there certainly are continuously things that we're sort of inspired by them, and there
It's
may
true.
well be more as time goes on.
I mean,
There
I
probably won't
literally
be-
just pulled
yeah.
pulled one of those pieces out in concepting like whatever 6 weeks ago or whatever. I pulled one of those pieces out.
Yeah.
Funny enough, yeah.
So yeah, they live on in various ways. So probably like the exact pieces wouldn't be released in Dwarvenite, but that doesn't mean there won't be analogs and maybe I'll do some more of my resin stuff down the line. Who knows?
You had so much fun casting and painting all those.
Oh god. Doing the first one's a blast. Doing the 51st one is not so much. Yeah, for those who don't know, my original Kickstarter, I like not only sculpted but cast and painted and shipped everything myself for just way too much stuff. I was working 16 hours a day for like a year and it was stupid.
Yeah.
My wife helped. Okay, I didn't quite do it all myself, as Eva would tell you. No, she helped paint some of the things. But it was, yeah. Who knew how much time shipping took if you had to bubble wrap everything? Oh my god.
Well, this is where a lot of small Kickstarters run into trouble, right? Where they get overly successful and then suddenly realize they have to deliver all this stuff, and it's a whole.
Yeah.
Know.
I mostly hit my deadlines.
Everybody got their stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I got like 3/4 of it out on time, which considering was pretty good. The last few were a couple months late, but hey.
Well, the problem was you were designing all
married
this
in that
stuff
time,
that
which
everybody wanted. Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we go, I think if anybody sat through all of this, they deserve like maybe a little bit of a bean of the future, right? So we don't have any more beans to show for Dungeons Reforged or to tell. We're not going to show. We'll tell. But it's no secret at this point. I think we've said that we are working on Cities Reforged. It's going to be our next Reforged. Do you guys each want to give a little tease of something that you've been sculpting or are sculpting for Cities Reforged right now? So we're going to do a few new pieces. You want to give people a little hint of what's to come, perhaps cryptic, like a dungeon master would do? No? Okay, I guess not. No,
Well,
no
who gets
beans.
to go
Sorry, guys.
first?
Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, for the piece I'm working on, I really had to dig deep. And I'm very happy to get a chance to make this.
All right, so that's your riddle for the day. Anybody else have a
Sure.
cryptic bean? Yeah.
Yeah, the pieces I've been working on, I've been looking at, went back to all the different types of stoneworks that we've seen in the cities to pave the ground in new levels.
Ooh.
Well,
All right.
no beans from
Somebody
me.
transcribe these onto Discord.
No beans from me, but I will say I planted a fair number of seeds that are growing in interesting ways.
Ooh. A fair number. All right. Well,
I'm
that's
sure we'll fulfill a lot of wishes.
yes.
We'll definitely fulfill a lot of our backers' wishes.
All right, that should give you plenty to think on. To you can mull it over the winter months before Cities Reforged. So thank Toby, Michelle, Eli. Thank you for hanging out, talking the process a little bit. Thank you everybody for watching. Chris, thanks for juggling all of this all at the same time, crashing streams and questions and whatnots. But we appreciate you turning out. We can't believe we're at what 2.3 million. And I mean 1.3 million, 7.3 million, a bazillion.
We've gone up 1 million during the stream.
We've gone up 1 million over the stream. 1.3 going into our final 24 hours. It's pretty exciting.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
Thank
you so much.
Yeah, $1 billion. And we have one more stream tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah,
Standard Daylight, midnight.
It starts in basically exactly 24 hours from now. And then we'll go for 2 hours till the campaign closes. We'll see what we end up hitting if we see just how far this campaign goes. We're going to do some special giveaways in addition to the usual gift card giveaways we've been doing.
You know what? Why don't we spill the beans on some special giveaways?
Okay.
So we're gonna do. We got 3 sculptors here. 1 set piece from each of them, signed prototypes. So we're gonna have an acid furnace. We're gonna have a demon's maw, and we're gonna have a dread pedestal with the bladed ziggurat. So Eli will sign that. Toby will sign the acid furnace. Michelle will sign demon's maw. Oh, I just broke it. And we'll ship it up each to 3 lucky winners. So your chance to get the actual pieces that we used to build this thing signed by the sculptor. But you got to tune in live tomorrow at 5. And I don't know. We'll see what happens between now and then. But we got some fun stuff to give away.
Yes.
Woo! So that's at 5, and then we take a long rest.
Yeah, for like a day or 2.
Yeah. Any other important things we need to say before we get out of here? Besides, thank you. We appreciate you.
Yeah, no on the Anvil or Hobby Hang this week. We're the campaign ends on Tuesday, and then we're down for the rest of the week.
Yes, we've had I don't know how many streams over the course of this thing. It's been a lot.
Oh, I don't know,
averaging 3.5 a week.
It's like pushing 20, I think. I don't know.
Yes.
All right.
Get Chris a new chair.
That's fine.
Okay.
I like tilting slightly forward the entire time.
The hunchback approach.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Let's take this thing home. Woo!
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.